So thanks for coming. Yes, I love this conference. I flew in from San Francisco pretty much for this. And I go to this one in San Francisco all the time. So I've been the last couple years and really enjoy it. So thank you, organizers, for having me. I'm going to start off with a little bit of comedy since we're on day 2 here. And I have about 300 slides that I can't fit in 15 minutes. So all the other slides you'll find, I'll show you the link here. It's all off PipelineAI. Let me get this. Actually going to be pulling this. We're doing the fundraising bit right now, so I'm going to pull this from our pitch deck, and I actually created a bunch of slides last night as well too. Okay, zip through these. So, see how this works through. Yeah, so I come to London like quite a bit, and I enjoy it out here. It's cold and cloudy and rainy, just like San Francisco, so it's really no different. I do want to highlight, this is only a 10, 15, 20-minute talk, whatever. We have thousands of slides and hundreds of hours of video off of these links on the bottom. Slideshare.PipelineAI, YouTube, PipelineAI. If you go to PipelineAI, there's a community tab, and there's a whole bunch of stuff there. Also, I run the London Spark TensorFlow meetup. This is an advanced meetup. It's not for the faint of heart. So there's a lot of code, a lot of GPU, a lot of system stuff. And the next one is actually Tuesday, October 9th, in conjunction with a competing conference organizer. So I'm not going to say who they are. But if you go there, and I believe it's at one of the hotels here. So it's not that weird Excel place that doesn't seem to actually be part of London, from what I can tell. So previously, I started PipelineAI about 1.5 years ago. I was previously with Netflix and with Databricks, the company that created Spark. So this is actually pretty significant because these two backgrounds fed into Pipeline's creation. Sort of on the Netflix side, the continuous, testing things in production, which freaks a lot of people out. If you don't have good tooling and good frameworks and good platforms, this is very scary. But with good platforms and good processes in place, which is what we built with Pipeline, you can actually push models out at the speed of thought, is what we say. So you could wake up in the morning and have a little inkling of what you might want to try. Some slightly different hyperparameter, either offline hyperparameter, meaning a training side hyperparameter, like the learning rates of your neural network, the depth of your decision tree, or maybe you were in the bathroom and heard someone talking about this new GPU that you guys have, and you want to get your model into this GPU and start and see if there's any performance gain. And so we're very production focused, obviously, but we're also very application focused. So when we work with customers, we're always talking about how do you get this model into production and behind some application, right? These need to be consumed by a Kafka stream. These need to be consumed, through a REST endpoint, gRPC endpoint. I put my school in there. I wouldn't normally put that in there, but this ties into the fun slide I'm going to show next. So just real quick, things I've learned about the UK since I've been coming here. Why the hell are your plugs so big, right? Why? Why are they so big? So finally got to the bottom of this. Apparently there's a fuse in there, and apparently every plug has its own little circuit breaker. And so that finally made sense, because this takes up about half my luggage when I come over. Yeah, see, we have nice simple ones, and we shock ourselves quite a bit and fall off ladders, but that's okay. There's this other phrase that it's actually taken me 2 or 3 trips to understand. It's this "you okay" thing, and yes, I do Tinder when I'm out here. I'm not going to lie. I'm a single guy, and I'm trying to get the fuck out of the country because of Trump. So, yes, I'm single. If any ladies, want to pick me up, yes, I'm a good catch. So, girls, guys, people on the street ask me if I'm okay, and yeah, I'm okay. Why are you asking me if I'm okay? So finally, I realized that this is what's up, which is just as ridiculous, I guess, right? And then it seems like half of you are named Pippa. and I couldn't figure this out. And I know Pippa Middleton, and last few years I didn't really pay too much attention, but half the organizers here are named Pippa, or Pip, or P, I guess, if you are really short of time. So figured out it's a combination of love and horse, which is probably not that flattering. Okay, lastly, being like an American, I'm super infatuated with the royal family, right? This has just always fascinated me. And I finally have a connection now to the royal family. So what's her name? Meghan Merkel something? Actually went to my university in Chicago. So I'm very proud of that. Yeah, there's a picture of me. That's my, with my, is it like reverse fringe or something, would you call that? Like yeah, the mullet fringe. So I'm old as shit, yeah. She graduated in 2003. Who do you know graduated in 2003? That's, man, okay. So back to pipeline. So the traditional pipeline here, you have model training, you have this kind of arbitrary validation phase. There's a couple different phases within there. I'm just gonna call it model validation. And this is all offline stuff, typically. This is where people's sort of like, right, like their pipelines end here with this offline validation. And they get some score and they use, F1 and various other, right, like metrics to determine if this model should go to production. And then there's this wall and there's this handoff and you hand it over to this unicorn that may or may not exist. And this person comes out of their little unicorn cave every now and then and may or may not have the same model when they're done. And it's rewritten in C++ or it's rewritten in Java or something normal besides Python. So now there's this new kind of phase here, which I actually cover in the next slide, which is there's these newer frameworks that are like hopping on the scene. And they've been here for about 2 or 3 years now. So the obvious one is TensorFlow. I pretty much don't go to any deep learning conference anymore without hearing about TensorFlow or even talking to customers. They're all using it. There's other ones like MXNet, CNTK by Microsoft. These are what we call ML 3.0. And these frameworks are very, very production focused, right? So Google will not do anything unless A, that framework can scale and can scale both training, which is distributed training, right? Like distributed TensorFlow, or scale and be able to power their apps like Gmail and yeah, all the fun stuff coming out of them. So my point here is if you can snap into these newer frameworks, you now get this super fast high performance runtime that's built in C++. And like they've kind of handled all of the sort of PMML-ish type things that at one point we've all done, where you take the model from R, you get this janky R to PMML converter, you then have a PMML runtime that's kind of open source, but you still have to pay some guy in Estonia, and yeah, not good. Yeah, this is a true story. I'm not like making that part up. And so now these frameworks come out, they like give you ways to train, but they also give you ways to serve predictions. And as far as Google says, it's very similar to what they use internally. They claim there's not much difference, just some metrics and other things that they pump out internally that they don't expose publicly. And so that's called TensorFlow serving, by the way. So at Pipeline, we've taken those principles, we've combined them with our sort of Netflix, wild, wild west, but kind of controlled wild west, maybe like Burning Man, if you will. It's like you build it up and then, yeah, you could always tear it down. Yeah, I just came up with that actually. Burning Man was a couple weeks ago, and yeah, some of my friends are still walking around like zombies because pretty much all of San Francisco goes to Burning Man, and then they all come back at the same time. And yeah, the city's quiet. I can get to the front of the bar easily, that kind of thing. Okay, so back to this slide. So there's still kind of the initial model training. We're not really focused on that at Pipeline, by the way. We know that there's 8 million tools to train models, and everyone kind of has their own thing going on in their own way. Where we come in is kind of combining this model validation step both offline and online. So we actually don't consider a model to be valid or to be production worthy until it's been in production and actually been taking real production traffic. And this is very scary, I understand. But think of a scenario, which is our default scenario, by the way, where you push this model into shadow mode. And it's classically called dark mode or nerf mode, if you're familiar with Nerf guns. And So these things are like taking traffic, they sit right next to, or they sit in a separate cluster, so they're not sharing resources, from the main like model. So say we have one model that's pushed out, and now we've actually generated about 10 to 12 new models. That's a pipeline feature where we can take that same model and we can fuse layers together. We could do all kinds of tricks. If you're trying out that like GPU, like I mentioned earlier, we'll actually run it through this like GPU optimizer. There's this pre-production step that Pipeline is really trying to highlight. So it's not just training, sort of offline validation, and then push it out and kind of forget about it. It's this continuous like nature, and our booth actually talks about that out there. I'm just sitting outside route. So yes, basically you want to validate your models, like continuously validate these things. Check for any bias, check for any decay, right? These models, like very quickly, especially fraud models, of course, that's the most human grokkable. These models go out once, they're doing well for the first couple hours, and then someone figures out the fraud, and now the sort of online like relevancy has gone way down. And this is something that like you want to monitor and then detect. So it's not just monitoring the system metrics itself, but this is monitoring predictive metrics and the ability to push new models out quickly and then compare them side by side and see how are they predicting relative to each other. So the key phrase here is continuous. Also, it's at the bottom here, but the ability to explain these predictions. This is a very hot topic. This is a very difficult topic with these neural networks. At minimum, maybe just trace and show me. If I have an ensemble, right, that's another feature of Pipeline where you can ensemble predictions. Take like multiple models and then combine them. And that's essentially a hyperparameter, right? So one of the knobs that like you can turn is, I want to combine this small model with this other small model. And there's this new trend now to make smaller models because those are easier to explain. And then as you compose or ensemble these models together, now you can explain like portions of them, and you have at least a fighting chance to tell that customer why they were denied like access to Tinder or whatever. And then the other thing is this continuous training. So this is really the holy grail for machine learning, the ability to online train. And so we hook in with Kafka, and you could actually feed in more data. Now I have this cool demo. I don't know how much time I have, but I'll just describe it real quick. So let me get to the next slide. Oh yeah, so this is sort of ML 1.0, ML 2.0, ML 3.0. So like, yeah, so the initial ML, and I just chose two kind of from each phase here, but R, MATLAB, scikit-learn, these to us were kind of 1.0 machine learning. And then 2.0 was really similar like algorithms, but now we were able to scale them for big data and run on clusters. Oh, that's the end. And then this last one is this online stuff. Yeah, so I think the other slides will be here. You can detect bias, explain, and just a bunch on traction. And if you go to community.pipeline.ai, that is a live demo that you guys can play with. And here's actually 12 variants that we've deployed. And I was running a load test earlier, and these start to light up, and you can see. So thanks for listening. Yeah, hopefully that was interesting.